Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So I'm calling this episode Between Dem Phoniness and GOP Fascism, U.S. Politics is Caught in a Low-Level Equilibrium Trap. So I'm borrowing the concept of low-level equilibrium trap from an economist called Richard Nelson. I mean, his contribution has sort of been obscured, or he formulated this concept in the 1950s, and actually I don't think it's in economics, or in the way at least Nelson formulated it. It's really that useful, okay? Or at least he used kind of an erroneous or a faulty model of national development, or in underdeveloped countries, in less developed countries. And but I'm applying the idea to U.S. politics, so not in relation to economics. And also, I don't think society actually, or societies reach equilibria on some grand scale, that we're not sort of stable systems. We're always on the verge, on the cusp of chaos. So this is, if you have heard about complex systems theory, in any case, so we're dynamic systems that are that either have multiple equilibria or dynamically changing equilibria. It's not all chaotic, as the word chaos suggests, but we certainly are dynamic. And anyway, but in U.S. politics, we seem to be stuck, and that being stuck is expressed, in my opinion, very well by the idea of a low-level equilibrium trap. In other words, the quality of our politics is very low, because, and let me explain, our politicians are not grappling with the real issues of society. Instead, they're making up problems, or they are overcoming problems that are a function of our inefficient, antiquated, and corrupt system, and they and then suggest that they are triumphant because they've overcome a minor procedural issue. In this, I'm referring to the debt ceiling negotiation that we are being asked to congratulate Joe Biden on, and McCarthy is claiming that Kevin McCarthy, the GOP House leader, Speaker of the House, is claiming that he got the best of it. I think the Republicans did get the best of it, though at the same time, this is This is an outcome that Joe Biden essentially manufactured for himself. So, but Joe Biden is not, in my opinion, representing the best interests of Democrats and of the American people in the way he got himself into negotiations with the Republicans in the first place, and then essentially has now a policy straitjacket around himself for the next 2 years, including upon the executive branch, and including on executive orders he can do. So he can't do hardly any. He can do very little or nothing for the American people, if not subtract from their welfare in terms of public policy. Now, he is lucky, and maybe his luck will continue, in that the economy seems to not have been damaged too much by some of his lack of action in Washington, and there seems to be an ongoing strong economy for certainly some people in the economy, not for everybody. And on the other hand, that economy is a fossil fueled economy, a highly wasteful economy that cannot continue much longer. And the policies that Joe Biden has implemented that are supposedly a climate policy are very, very weak and have been weakened by this budget deal even more, which included approvals of fossil fuel pipelines and an ongoing favoring of fossil fuel projects. So anyway, so this even though you can project onto Joe, if you're a Democrat, you can project onto Joe Biden your best, most ideal thoughts as a Democrat, and that he will represent those and he will be a champion of those, but he will disappoint you if you look at the reality in 9 out of 10 of those cases, okay? And he will do so in part by his own choice, by choices he makes, not by the circumstances that he finds himself in, though some of those circumstances are hard. But he is not a fighter for the American people, in my opinion, and or he's not a strong fighter, and he is in love with a vision of bipartisanship, of embrace of the Republican Party, and even he could even be considered a Trojan horse for the Republican Party in the Democratic Party, and which is very, very problematic, given that the Republican Party, even according to his own analysis recently, is tending toward fascism. So he has a very strange idea about politics. I think he believes that the more approbation he gets from the chattering classes, that is his form of politics, that somehow if he pleases the chattering classes, he pleases the Washington establishment, the media establishment, then they will be favorable to him, rather than him constructing a politics from a inner sense of right and wrong, and not just, I am not Donald Trump, or I am not, a serial womanizer and, sadist and, psychopath like Donald Trump. So, and I being Joe Biden, in this, what I'm speaking as if I'm justifying his actions anyway, that he thinks of himself as I'm imagining, thinks of himself as, well, I'm just barely better than this guy, or he doesn't think he's just barely, he thinks he's substantially better, but still, or and I'm going to save America from fascism by being this person that he is, okay? Anyway, and not engage in positive policy that uplifts the American people beyond not doing certain things. In other words, so he looks for approbation for not being rash, or not being motivated by a vision or a drive to break with the past of Washington, okay? So anyway, so he's very much a creature of the Washington blob, you can say, or the political blob. And anyway, so this is this low-level equilibrium trap that, and that means that it's a feedback loop that we are caught in, where us voters and us commentators are, and public, anyone can be a commentator, okay, but speakers of in private and in public and in this on the internet, that we are caught in a position where we can only choose between extremely bad and somewhat bad, and or listless and phony. Okay, so this is where, I brought this up in the recent episode. There's a sham morality to the Democratic Party, and it's you have trouble understanding the Democratic party policies and how they operate if you don't use something like a sham morality. I've talked about it in part as being good cop versus bad cop, and it is a good cop, bad cop game. So that's sort of one metaphor, and it's that's a very good metaphor. I think very precise. You can get very far understanding U.S. politics that way, but in trying to characterize what are the good cops doing or how are they acting like good cops, well, it's this sham morality, and which is, often the good cop is, acting in the non-political setting of the actual police, so to speak. The good cop is acting as though he represents or she represents the, or they represent this morality, so to speak, or this sympathy and empathy for the prisoner, and that they are going to get the prisoner, soften up the prisoner, and they're going to contrast themselves to the bad cop. Look, I'm not the bad cop. I'm just here to help you, so to speak. And anyway, but still the prisoner is imprisoned. Okay. So the good cop and the bad cop are in a sense working together. So anyway, so this sham morality, because we're not talking about a single prisoner or group of prisoners in a prison, but we're talking about the vast public of the United States, and there's all kinds of appeals made by politicians to morality or to their own virtue, and so the Democratic Party trumpets its own virtue or virtue signals. It's a very good word. It describes, it is some of the actions within the sham morality of a large portion of the Democratic Party. And that sham morality is very, very widespread in the party. And I have supported politicians on the left wing of the Democratic Party, the Squad, and Bernie Sanders. And in the last 10 years or so, or almost 10 years. And I think that, my patience is wearing thin on their actions and whether they are part of the sham morality of the Democratic Party. I mean, some people have already concluded that, and they say, forget those people. We don't need them there, or not. We don't need them, but whatever it is, I'm opposed to them. I'm the left of the left. I'm, I won't be fooled again, so forth and so on. They're acting, they're playing, they're tools of the Democratic Party, of the blob, and I frankly haven't seen them strongly enough differentiate themselves and be able to use whatever power they currently have and whatever to at least preserve their own morality, literally, or their own ethical standing, which is very important for them in their ongoing work. If they really are progressives, if they really are opposed to a lot of what someone like Joe Biden does, and a lot of, or Hakeem Jeffries, or Nancy Pelosi before Hakeem Jeffries. So basically the corporate Democratic accession to and enabling of the GOP, or enabling of the donor class interest as represented by a combination of corporate Democrats and the GOP, even in its, not just the traditional GOP that were more buddy with the sort of the traditional elites, the traditional corporate elites, but even the sort of quote unquote brash fascist or neo-fascist wing of the the Republican Party. So anyway, this low-level equilibrium trap is something that, so voters like you and me and speakers, commentators, opiners, in your conversations at home, in your conversation with friends, we are in a bind because we want to, if we believe in our beliefs, if we believe in the fundamental goals of progressive politics, we are caught because we can't. We might feel like we hold back because what if we lay into Biden and he loses? I mean, it looks like he may lose to whoever the Republican nominee is. His approval ratings are very low. He seems listless. He seems so. I am for a full-throated primary, including all the best politicians that the Democratic Party has to offer for the presidency, and that's what's needed. And and just to crown Biden is a enormous political mistake. And even though he's done he's like getting us out of Afghanistan, and he somehow he is the economy under him is not that bad. It's pretty good. But there are issues with him in terms of forging ahead with what we need to be doing and the bolder plans that we have that are bold, but they're absolutely necessary. They're totally commonsensical. They're absolutely commonsensical. We need to stop using fossil fuels almost immediately, okay, and as soon as possible, and we need to be rolling out the renewable energy resources that we have, and also need to have some kind of backup to them, be it through storage, through some kind of nuclear plant, so forth and so on. Anyway, we need a zero carbon future, and we need it now. We need it as soon as possible. And I mean, that's one of my issues, but there are lots of other issues that you can also lay into the corporate Democratic or the Washington blob, so forth and so on. Anyway, we're trapped because we don't want to encourage the fascists by giving them ammunition, so to speak, against whoever the Democratic nominee. If it's kind of a turkey like someone like Biden and so forth and so on. So and at the same time, I mean, I think it should be possible to speak your mind about all of these people and to be blunt about it. You need to be able to articulate bad and worse. This is again, how, if you're in the general, if you're given the choice between bad and worse, and really bad, in other words, worse in the sense of totally bad, fascist, let's say, end of democracy politician, you choose the one who's for democracy in some of its forms, whatever. You try to hold on, you campaign for them, so forth and so on. You make the case, even in negative terms, about how, he gives us light, he gives us a possibility to fight another day, so forth and so on. There are many, many ways to talk about that. But anyway, it requires thinking. It requires people to be able to think their way out of this low-level equilibrium trap. So anyway, I'm offering this as another conceptualization of where people, activists, voters, who, again, believe in the ideals of progressive, of, broadly speaking, social democratic and ecological balance and so forth and so on. It's a combination of you can call it eco-socialism even, or eco-social democracy, left version, whatever you want to call it. If you believe in those things and you think that they can be if not easily, they are practically realizable with work and with government, with ethical, well-grounded government policy. And we need politicians to implement that. So anyway, this trap is something that we need to break out of. So anyway, so I'm first formula is to try to make sure that we have a Democratic primary for president and try to get us out of this. Again, there are worse things than what the trap that the Democratic, the phoniness of the Democratic Party, the sham morality. There are worse things than it. I mean, it's very, very bad what they're doing. Very bad, very tricky, very fraudulent. Okay, but it's not as bad as those who are committed to evil, who are committed to destruction, who are committed to their own and very, very narrow self-interest that they have, but stay at the same time who lust for power. So anyway, so I hope this gives you some information, or it's more of a kind of a positioning / think a way to sort of think about discourse, think about how to think about our situation. Anyway, so if you are getting something out of this, or I mean, if you have please share your reactions and thoughts to what I'm putting out here. Please in the comments, please subscribe to Politics 2100, and please like this video. And so if you get something out of it, and I hope to see you in the next video.